Yes, I was born in Oakland, California, in 1918, and about that time my father was a shoemaker in Oakland. He had a little shoe shop on the first floor of the Oakland YMCA building. He had been reading and hearing a lot about the cowboys and Indians of Wyoming, and so he became interested and started inquiring around, was able to get some contacts for a job on the railroad. A year later, when I was 13 months old, then my father brought my mother and myself to Wyoming. I went to the grade school through high school in Casper and graduated in 1936, and then went to the University of Wyoming until 1941. Ran out of money, so I dropped out of school and decided to join the Army in those days. I thought I could serve 1 year and save enough money to finish up my college degree. So I was on the rifle range on December the 7th, 1941, when an officer of the horse squadron came galloping up on his horse and said that Hawaii had been bombed, and didn't know by whom or so forth, but they could guess. Well, first I was surprised and shocked. In the first place, I never dreamt that they would be able to do something like that, let alone want to do it. Exactly 7 days before Pearl Harbor. So on November 30th, 1941, the first sergeant came around and then handed me an order, regimental order, and said, "Gee, I'm sorry about this." I read the order, and I was broken in rank from, at that time, the equivalent of a tech sergeant, down to a buck private. My brother, he was also in the radio section, and he was broken in rank down to a buck private. One of the officers then went with us up to talk to the commanding officer of the regiment, and his only response was, well, it was just in the best interest of the regiment. Now this was, of course, on November 30th, 1941. After November 7th, well, of course, then I think we all understood. My brother, myself, and this one other Japanese kid from Kemmer, the cook, were transferred to Fort Benjamin Harrison. There we were placed in a service company. So we were there from 1942 until probably the early part of 1943. What happened after that is my brother and I and quite a few others signed up for this volunteer unit, and we were then shipped to Camp Shelby, Mississippi, located just outside of Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And there again, then we did our training as a unit to fight over in Europe. Statistic in our regiment is that we had the most college graduates of any Army regiment in the United States. But anyway, those from Hawaii were a lot younger, and their morale, of course, was extremely high, despite the fact that they weren't able to see the family, but they felt more involved because it was Hawaii that was bombed. I think it was the early part of 1944 when they put us on troop transport, and that was just about the time that the breakthrough of the Anzio, so we were able to land and so forth, but we were still getting, of course, air raids from the Germans. At Anzio, I don't think there was even a pile of rubble more than 4 feet high. It was just unbelievable. There was just nothing, everything but rubble, and the highest pile was probably 4 feet high. And I was a forward observer for what we call cannon company, short-range cannon. My brother was with heavy weapons, and so we were just going through his unit, I was rather, and so I happened to see him, so about all we did was just wave each other, say, "How you doing?" and so forth, and walked on. It was after that then that we had this one battle in which I was wounded, and also he was wounded. And so I wrote a letter to my mother, or family letter, and said, "Well, I just saw my brother King, and he's okay, you know, don't you worry about me, because I'm in the hospital here, and I'm doing all right." Let's say I stayed on in the service until May, I believe, yeah, May of 1946, and at that time I was able to get a discharge and get a civil service job, and was then able to save a little money, and then decided to return back to school and finish up my BA degree that I was working on. In 1949, I got my BA, and in 1950, December 1950, I finished my law school. I could understand why those in government, and especially the military, were especially wary of the possibilities. Now, there wasn't a single case, of course, of espionage or sabotage or anything like that, or any connection of any of the local Japanese or in the United States, any connection at all with the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Nevertheless, I could understand how people would feel, because here you had people who were distinctly different physically and also in culture. Well, you don't trust what you don't understand.